Guthrie. He's had a wild life, I'll tell you, from that upbringing that we mentioned, to spending 3 years in a federal prison on a drug dealing charge, for becoming the light heavyweight champion of the world, and now he's fighting for his survival.
We're here today with William Guthrie, going over his life story so we can tell you exactly who he is, the man behind the myth and the legend, the urban legend that is. What's going on, champ?
I'm alright. How's everything?
I'm good. So basically, I'm not trying to create a negative situation here. What I'm trying to get at is basically to show how your life was headed on this upward slope, but more in a negative, destructive manner. And then you were actually accused of a situation, but not just for murder, but also for drug situations as well, correct? Mm-hmm. Now, basically, when you went into prison, you were on trial, not convicted, but on trial for how many murders?
Accused of 70-something, 90-something, convicted of 49. Possession with the intent to distribute, kingpin of a drug organization, all kinds of old stuff they came up with. You know, growing up in a poor neighborhood, unfortunately for me, I was born in what they said was deemed as the worst build in American history. As a little kid, you know, I witnessed my first murder, you know, and this happened on a regular basis in that project. I didn't know anything different at that time. I thought everybody lived that way.
I know you and I have shared plenty of stories. How old were you when you counted your first $1 million?
Oh, I think when I actually did a count, that was 12. By that time, as a little bitty boy, I become real crafty about who I was. As I look at kids today, I hear mothers and fathers say, "Oh, my son didn't do that," or my daughter wouldn't do that, but not my son. Hey, listen, when we're in our house, when we're at home with our mothers and fathers, we are our mother and father's child, sons and daughters. We act as such. My mother and father, unfortunately for them, they were drug addicts, functional drug addicts. My mother was a drug addict, was a dope fiend. She wasn't a drug addict. She was a dope fiend. And I never seen a dope fiend cleaner than my mother. Never in my life have I seen a dope fiend cleaner than my mother. In terms of her hygiene, how she was. We lived in a clean house. Didn't have much, very little, small, but it was clean. The way I hid stuff was, I was a thinker. I've always been a thinker.
Right.
An extreme thinker. And I was the oldest child. By the time I was 5 years old, for sure, I would be in the house for 2 and 3 days, sometime a week, 2 weeks at a time, taking care of 4 babies.
Wow.
Because she was going on a drug bench.
What choice led you to say, you know what, I want to box? And if so, did that decision come to you because you felt like boxing was a way out?
Boxing was, as a young boy in the project, there was a community center right across the street from the project. And everybody boxed, all the boys. We boxed each other with our fists because that was a game that we played. We punched each other all the time. And we would punch each other's body, and it developed where we were even able to hit each other in the face. That was something that we was taught. The bigger boys say, "Man, I bet you can't fight him. You can't beat him. You can't beat him." They push you in each other, make you bump somebody. Next you know, y'all fighting. That was just the thing to do.
Like the bad man.
You know what I mean? They make somebody, you know,
right.
They put someone on you. Back then, you know, if a guy did it like this, you know, he instigate. I bet you can't do this to him. You know, knock that off his shoulder. And if you knocked it off his shoulder, he was gonna hit you in the face. So that was the game, you know. I mean, that was the thing to do. Lied, they said I was 6.5. I was big for my age, tall, and about to be 7, and I was actually about to be 5. And they put me in the city tournament, in a locals Diamond Gloves city tournament, and I fought I think 6 or 7 times that week, and I won a trophy taller than me. But from that point on, I was a boxer.
Who were your boxing heroes? Like in your mind, who did you envision yourself being when it came to being one of the great fighters?
Oh man, that's, you know, I never in my wildest imagination thought that I could ever be like them. I could emulate them, and you know, I loved the greatest, the absolute greatest of all time. I happen to share birthdays with this guy. He's the best, #1 of all time. That's Muhammad Ali. I share birthdays with him. But I loved Sugar Ray Leonard, and I maybe loved 40 times more Marvin Hagler. Yeah, I loved Hagler. There were a lot of good fighters old times that I liked, and to now be able to go to in the Hall of Fame inductee, and be able to go to Hall of Fame and see some of these guys, man, meet them, laugh, and talk with them.
Were any of those guys were there any positive influences of boxing figures that came to you while you were in jail, fighting for your life, fighting to get that time back?
Again, when I first went to prison, prior to going to prison, I was 8-0.
Right.
Eight professional fights with 8 knockouts. And on a handshake, I had a chance to meet a famous promoter who, unfortunately, for me, even telling my story, he passed away a few weeks ago. A brilliant man, very, very brilliant man, and one of the best promoters ever. His name was Butch Lewis. Butch Lewis is very dear friends with Bob Johnson of BET, and he was the man who gave Bob Johnson his first money to start BET.
Right, I've heard the story.
Yeah. So that when I went into prison, by that time of going to prison, I had been through all kinds of stuff.
Right.
So
how many times were you shot at when you were young?
Oh
before
man.
prison?
Oh man. I can't name the times I've been shot at. It's been a
how
lot
many
of
times were you hit prior to that time?
I was hit 5 or 6 times. 6 times. 4 or 5 occasions. 5 occasions.
Is that the time period when you got the one fragment that was
in the eye, in the head, in the hand, in the leg, in the back.
So now, like how we saw, like say with the Mike Tyson situation, when Mike went to jail for something that he was accused of, he came back out a different fighter. But the difference in your story and his story, when you came back out, you came out, it seemed like a stronger fighter.
It's, you know, me and Mike, childhood brothers, man. We pretty good friends. In fact, I had a little scare about a year ago with my heart and stuff. Shortly thereafter, he called, and we laughed and joked about it. Funny phone call. He had already went through a lot of things, and he had already accomplished a lot of things prior to going away. And then when he came back, it was, you know, just coming back. It's kind of different for him. I hadn't, by the time I went away, I had accomplished stuff for as money was concerned. You know, I was a young guy who, by the time I went to jail, I was the guy who had bankrolled the nightclubs. I had bankrolled most of the strip clubs. I had bankrolled the gas stations, the laundromats. Whatever these big guys around town who was real known, that owned all kinds of stuff, a lot of people didn't know I was the guy that gave them the money to do all this stuff.
You're the first fighter to ever do a knockout on a promoter. I love this promoter to death. So, you know, I think he's a great man. I don't care what. I think he really elevated, and I think he's probably, if not, but the best promoter that this planet probably has ever seen, which is Don King. And that took place after you actually got back out of jail as well, correct?
Yeah, that was after I came. Yeah, I mean, after I started my journey as a professional fighter, and I began to rise in the ranks, make a lot of noise as an up-and-coming fighter. I was rated number 1 and 2 in all the divisions, and I thought that an opportunity came for me to fight a champion who was Don's fighter. And I couldn't fight that champion unless Don had me under contract. And I thought it out. I decided to, okay. It's crazy, but I knew Don would fuck me ahead of time. I knew he would fuck me. I knew I would get into this agreement with Don King. And I knew Don King would fuck me, and I knew I'd be out of the agreement. But I would have accomplished, I would have gotten further. I would have furthered my career in a productive way. But my friend, he was hurt. He was really, really hurt. I said, just please trust me. Trust me. This ain't gonna work, but trust me, it's gonna be for the betterment of me. It's gonna be for the betterment of us. We're gonna be all right. Believe me, I know. He said, man, please. He cried. And immediately, the very first fight, it was a problem. I didn't get paid what was agreed to, and I didn't fight the guy who we had agreed upon. Nothing went right. That fight didn't go right, the next fight didn't go right, the next fight didn't go right, the fourth fight didn't go right. And right then at that point, I told Don, you know, I had to take that hat off and become this motherfucker who they never seen before. And I had to go back to the neighborhood and become that little guy that he didn't want to know. And so then I told him, I said, listen, let me tell you something, you fat black nappy head son of a bitch. I'm gonna cut your dick off and stick it in your mouth, you motherfucker. Don't fuck with me. I told him to take the contract, his copy of it. I took my copy and I took a real good shit. I drank some bowel movement, and I took a real good shit and I wiped my ass with mine, so he could do the same thing. I told him to drink a bottle of citric magnesium. I don't know if you know what that is, but that'll give you a hell of a shit. I told him to drink some, and he went to talking crazy and chocolate, you know, Don King. Chocolate, hey, you know, you ever met Don? Anybody knows Don? Don is a real loud guy, very, very loud. Hey, Chocolate, how you doing, baby, my man? Ha 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 ha. How you doing? Ha 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 ha. See what's going on, my main man? How you doing, baby? Ha 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 ha. But we gonna get some goddamn money today, ain't we? Make a lot of motherfucking money, see? Make a lot of fucking money.
You sound like him too, right?
Is that him?
That's him. And in a nutshell, if you can give a message out to inner youth, white, black, Spanish, green, purple, whatever, because no matter what, they're hoods everywhere, and not just in America, but all over the world. What message would you give?
I tell young guys that your neighborhood, I guess your neighborhood is very important to you.
Right.
Your community is very important to you. But I try and hope and pray that you wouldn't limit yourself to just your neighborhood, to a color. Colors don't mean one color matters on the planet. There's only one color that matters. They get us caught up on our ethnicities. on our communities, on our whatever. But our race doesn't matter. If we ever get cut, if we ever get shot, if we ever fall, bruise ourselves, we all bleed red blood. One blood, red. We all come from the same place. We all come from the earth. The only color that matters is red. Always look at somebody and be willing to help them. Always be willing to help. You don't expect people to do you right. You do them right. What goes out always comes back. My message to kids is, to anybody, is as long as you're willing to do the right thing is going to always come back to you. Just that simple. Even when you don't see it coming back, keep doing it. Keep doing it. You don't see it coming back, don't worry so much. Don't argue, don't fight. Just walk. Walk in a different direction. And that's going to be the best thing you could ever do. Walk in a different